Good day, fellows. Today we're gonna be talking about API design, specifically a RESTful API design. And today we're gonna be discussing it in first principles. So one thing to note here is that we're gonna discuss. There's no code that we're gonna be writing. So it's gonna be by first principle. So it's by first principle. What do I mean by that? I want you to get the idea of how we really things work before we went into code, because if you understand this, you can move. You can swap languages, you can swap technologies, you can swap databases without being worried about the logic, because everything flows the same way. If you understand the principles, you're gonna be able to design your API very efficiently. So this is how we're gonna be discussing this series. And the first thing I will start with is what is API, and in essence this is for backend development. So this is for backend dev. This is backend, right? And how does it work? Originally we have a server. And we have a client. So here is your server and here is your client. And what we initially want to do is to have these two places being able to communicate with each other and be able to do certain things. So how does this normally work? So what's a client? A client can be anything. It can be a browser, it can be your mobile app, it can be maybe what can you say, we can be an API as well. So it can be also another API consuming another API. So this is what we call a client by first principle. It's anything that able to access or that abstract per user. If you want somebody wants to make use of your API, they can be a browser, they can be a mobile app. So this is mobile app. Okay, and then after that, here this is where your API sits. So back in the 1960s or 1950s, when internet was available, people had files on their computers. Like people had text files, files in form of text. On these text files, you could perform a lot of things. You can create files, edit files, maybe update files on your computer, right? You could do these things, update files, and so the rise of an API, people were starting to realize that we would want to collaborate on the same file. Let's say, for instance, we have a text file. This is an Excel file, and this Excel file would want to edit, update, and share the information across other team members. And so they come up with some protocols to transfer the files over the internet. So this is when REST was developed. And so REST in first principle, what it does, so REST in first principle, RESTful in first principle, we identify files, we abstract the idea of files into resource, right? A resource. By resource, what do we mean? A resource is anything that it can be a file, it can be your name, it can be a media file, it can be an image. We call it a resource, right? Stick with me, it's gonna be simple as we move. And we abstract what we want to do as a resource. So a resource, this can be a file, this can be an image, and we decided to call it this can be an audio or whatever the case. So this resource, if we want another person to manipulate it from different location, how can we achieve that? This is where the first principles come into hand, and this is when they decided to say, okay, using HTTP, we can be able to transfer the actions that you would want to do on this resource, right, via HTTP, and you'd be able to achieve all those tasks. So think of it as so it's a state. So you are transferring a resource with your intentions over HTTP. So HTTP is a transferring protocol that transfers your resource, and then it transfers your intended actions on that resource, intent actions such as get, such as update. I think it's not update, I think it's patch, if I'm correct. This is patch. There's patch, there's delete, there is also put, and so forth, and also post. All right, these are the actions. And it's, when we say restful, it's a stateless transfer protocol, meaning to say every request that you send, in that request you put resources being the file, the action, which is this, the get, delete, and whatever the case, and also the information, which is metadata. Metadata can be authentication in forms of headers and other stuff. So the primary goal of an HTTP request is to carry your intentions over the internet. We don't manipulate the object directly using HTTP. We transfer a resource with through a representation, which is, in representation can be a JSON file. That's, you are representing your information. Then that represented information coupled with metadata, which is the, if you have the authentication or authorization from the API to allow you to be able to execute edit action on that particular person's computer. You see, so we are transferring the state, a resource, its a representation. So we are transferring a resource, then a representation. So what's a representation in this case? A representation is how we are organizing the resources in form of a resource, which is your name. Maybe this is your ID, maybe it's 1 2 3 or something. And we also have to put the routes where the action you want to perform to the server, where it is, which is your URI, you see, or URL in most common sense, which is called the resource, uniform resource locator, right? So you are telling the other computer, which is the server, what you want to achieve via transferring a representation of your action and data. Let's say you want to get you want to update your name. You put the new name to your profile, and you put the method that can be used on the server, which is patch, right, to update your name. It knows the correct method to call. You put headers, which is headers. You put headers. The headers can contain a lot of things This can be your auth. Are you authorized on the other end to perform these actions? You put also your URL, which is where this method is located. So this can be example, example.com profile, right? So this is so, and then we say maybe you want to transfer the, so in this case you are transferring, you are transferring your resource. So the resources are being transferred over the internet. Mind you, you are not updating anything via the stateless transfer. You're not updating anything. You're just transferring a state, a representation of the state. Then you transfer it via the internet. So this is your API. This is your so API is hosted on the server, right? And then this is your client, your browser, your browser, and this might be your Chrome. So this is Chrome you have here. So this is represented, maybe here you say content type. Also, content type is a standard way of saying, okay, if we want to transfer your name now over the internet, over the HTTP protocol, what the format can we agree on, so that every component in the layer network can be able to serialize. By serialize, we're just saying convert the data. So we are converting the data. So the content type in this case, sorry, just for getting you into the rabbit hole. So the content type in this case, you see, we have the content type, then we call it JSON. Then this is, in this case, this is your body, all right? Your body, your request body with your name and everything else here. And then, so by serialization, we're simply saying serialization. We are putting your name into JSON format. You're just putting your name into JSON format. Deserialization, we are decomposing the same JSON format to fit your programming language on the server end or on the front end, maybe. So in this case, if you are using JavaScript on the front end, you are converting the JSON into maybe an object which you can manipulate in the JSON. And then when you have Python, maybe on your back end, you are converting this JSON to a dictionary. So this is what we mean in essence. So after this, you have converted your JSON. So this is serialization and deserialization. So on every layer of the network, you can perform this. Remember, what we transfer over the internet is just ones and zeros. So if you are transferring ones and zeros, that means automatically those ones and zeros, they're gonna be converted into binary. After binary, they're transferred over the network via as network packets. After they reach their destination, it comes to this representation. What all this information is converted back into the representation. The server receives this. It knows, no, this person wants to do a patch, and he has for the name in JSON format, and he has a profile with us, and is authorized to update his own name. And also, this is where the resource is located, and this is the content of what, of the resources that we want to update. Then by then you forward that request to a router, on the HTTP layer of your API, and then it's transferred on to a handler, and a handler transfer it to we check if the naming convention is valid. This is done on the middleware layer. So this is your API layers. After it is being transferred to your API layers, this is your middleware, and then this is your services. So this is your services, and then this is your repository. In this repository where it sits your DB, your database. So the message here reaches, so the representation of all this information, it reaches the API endpoint here in form of, then the person knows that okay, this is, so what is the route for this representation? It comes here, it routes to the update name, update profile, or whatever the case, update profile. And then we go to the handlers, which handler does the update. We check, we see that this is the handler that does the update, right? And then we check if, yeah, this is where we do validation. We check on the middleware and we put validation here, and we check if the name is in correct format, there's no number in it or whatever, we validate here. After that, after the passing, we route to the correct method that updates the name. This is update. We search into the database, we get your ID, we update your name, then we send it to the database. So basically, this is what we're doing. We're not doing an update inside the browser. We send the state to the back end so that the server would know how to implement these changes in the database.